I am a pediatrician working in Groningen, the Netherlands, in the northern part of Holland. I studied death and dying in the NICU several years, and I've moved away, or not away, a little bit towards pediatric palliative care. And I find a lot of similarities in what happens in the DR, in the NICU, how communication is problematic, and what happens in older children with devastating diseases. And probably just like the other two, I feel more comfortable talking about the limits of viability now since I've taken a little bit of distance from it. I'm going to show you a bit about how the Dutch approach is at this stage. We are having huge discussions about how we should continue in addressing the periviability chapter. I have some observations from comparing our practice to other practices, and I have a few questions that I haven't solved myself, just to share. So, as a start, our policy is different from the policy in many other countries. The Dutch are very conservative when it comes to active resuscitation of extreme premature babies. There are many potential reasons for our conservatism. I come back to that a little bit later. There is an intriguing, interesting interplay, at least in our country, but probably in your countries as well, between what the law says, what ethicists say and think, and what medical practice is. Just to give you an example, we have in our consensus document said that active treatment of an extremely premature baby it should be possible from 24 weeks onward. It's recommended unless there are interesting and important reasons not to do it. 24 weeks is also the cutoff point for termination of pregnancy on the mom's request. So the mom has the right to request for termination of pregnancy until 24 weeks. After 24 weeks, it's the doctor who decides. Before 24 weeks, she decides. There is a kind of an increased protection for the fetus and newborn that starts at 24 weeks. I'm not sure that is the reason why we're not discussing 23 and 22 weekers, but it may also play a role. So we try to refer to perinatal centers only at 23 plus 4 weeks. We start steroids at 23 plus 5 weeks. And C-section is recommended at 24 weeks. Pretty conservative, and even now there are some of us who think this is conservative, but still a lot of neonatologists, maybe the older ones, wouldn't mind going back to the 2005 consensus that said active treatment from 25 weeks onwards. So that is the situation in the Netherlands right now, and we are in the process of making a new guideline that might come out, I don't know, maybe next year or something. This is a slide that comes from the supplement that Stefan just mentioned. And what we did is we surveyed neonatologists in 3 different countries to find out what they do and what they think in the context of the guideline. And those A and B slides, they show you what the lowest gestational age is at which neonatologists would provide resuscitation in A, good newborns, and B, not so good newborns. And what you see in the A slide, in the A part of the slide, the yellow one is Holland, is that from 24 weeks onwards, everyone says they would resuscitate, A few of them, around 20%, would resuscitate the good newborn at 23 weeks, and most of them would, there's a steep increase at the cutoff point of the guideline, the 24 weeks. Our outcome numbers are pretty simple. Until recently, no survivors below 24 weeks, simply because the guideline says do not resuscitate them. They die. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's slightly different in the not so good newborn, but still you see the turning point at 24 weeks. In the article, we call it the Cinderella effect. At the strike of midnight, suddenly the child becomes worthy of resuscitation and survives. That is what we say we should do, and most neonatologists do it, except for 20%. We also, by the way, ask them about non-resuscitation based on parental request. At what is the highest gestational age that you would consider non-resuscitation in a good newborn at parental request? And here you see that the Dutch would be prepared, most of the neonatologists would be prepared to not resuscitate until even almost 27 weeks. Pretty conservative. I'm not sure what it says, but probably it says parental request is extremely important, and maybe more important than the rights of the child at that stage. So interesting observations. And this is the one that I like most. Because personally, I think it's weird to have a cutoff line at 24 weeks, but it's as weird as having it at 23 or 26, because it's just gestational age. We asked the neonatologist, would it be possible to give a prognosis threshold, the probability of survival without profound disabilities, which is the lower part of the slide. And here you can see that the neonatologists in those 3 countries had more or less similar approach. So if you take out the gestational age out of the equation and would only focus on prognosis, we wouldn't be so different from all of you. I think this, for the Dutch, would be the way to go. Stop using gestational age as a label and start focusing on other elements, just like prognosis. So where are we now in Holland, and what should we do next? What should we solve in order to make a new guideline? I think for the Dutch, the 2005 and 2010 consensus were important, even though they contained the cutoff line of 24, 25 weeks, because we sat together with the obstetricians for the first time and tried to have a consensus about transferring, about steroids, about cesarean section, and we succeeded there. We were able to improve care, the organization of care improved. We started to do follow-up and other research projects. The Dutch find it very important, this is how we are trained and how we train our young fellows, to continuously evaluate and justify intensive care treatment. So each day you're supposed to ask yourself, do I still have enough justification to continue treatment? If not, discontinue intensive care treatment. That's how we are trained, that's how we've learned to think. And I think that is a good thing, in a way. We try to be very transparent about reasons to withhold or withdraw intensive care treatment. We publish about it. I think they're all good things. However, the discrepancy increases with practices in most other wealthy countries in the world, specifically Sweden and USA. Can we still explain our consensus approach to parents or future parents? I find this increasingly problematic. They will say, Why can I not have a 23-weeker where the neighbors, the Germans or the Swedish, have excellent outcome? And this, that would be my guess, will increase. Parents reading outcome numbers and asking us about the discrepancy. Another question to me is, why are we deviating from the general accepted prognosis-based thinking in other fields of pediatrics? There are no other examples that I know of where we say calendar age is a cutoff point. Above that cutoff point we treat, below that cutoff point we do not treat. And I find it weird that we do this in extreme prematures only. It's as if they're less valuable to us. A last question to me is, why are we so liberal in life-ending measures? It's legal to end lives of newborns who are suffering. But we are extremely conservative when an infant is born at the limits of viability. Why is that? And I haven't found the answer, but this may play a role. The Dutch feel a huge responsibility. The doctors feel huge responsibility for their work. So if they deliver a child that turns out to be very disabled, it's on their shoulders. They're responsible for it. And that's maybe one of the reasons that if they have a choice, they wouldn't go that far. This is probably historical. Quality of life is highly valued, as is quality of dying. If we continue this way, disabilities will become less and less common and accepted, which I think is not a good way to go. And what we also have in our culture is the idea that suffering should be prevented at all times, at all costs. This explains the euthanasia movement in our country. It's legal. Suffering, if you can, should be avoided and prevented. So maybe this also plays a role in the conservatism towards extreme prematurity. As you notice, I haven't figured it out myself completely. I have some explanations. I see that we are very different. And I'm also convinced that part of it is culture and part of it is changeable. That was my contribution for today.